Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome out to tonight's Saturday morning online workshop. We appreciate you joining us. My name is Shade Foray. I'm here with Stephen Swenson, and these Saturday morning workshops have become kind of a tradition.
Yeah, we try to hold them about every 30 or 45 days or so, and just give new investors an idea of what tax sale investing is, introduce you to us, and really give a chance to do a live training with investors that may have not participated in any of our programs or learned about tax lien and deeds before.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for people that are not necessarily a part of our membership or training to learn more about tax liens and deeds, learn a little bit more about what it is that we do, and more than anything, I think kind of a chance for you to get to know us, and then also an opportunity for more training. If you guys, if you are into tax liens and deeds and you want to learn more, then part of what this is about is trying to show you what we can provide.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, you're also welcome to ask questions throughout these.
Yeah. In fact, we'll probably stop at certain points and go ahead and ask questions once we've got done with certain topics. So as far as me and Shade, we first got started in tax sale investing really almost 20 years ago to the year. I was a real estate broker, and I was a real estate agent, and my broker invited me to come out and attend a local auction, and that was really kind of the first thing I heard about it. And I told Shade as soon as I was done, as soon as I heard about it and saw it, and we started researching everything we could about it.
Yeah, in fact, I think that the process that we went through is probably not much different from the process that many of you are going through, except for when we were trying to do it, there was a lot less information out there about it. And it was also right as the internet was starting to change things. And so it was really confusing. I think we went out and probably bought every training program and book that we could find or that we could afford. If we were only 20, we didn't have any money. And so we pretty much we spent a couple of years just trying to figure out how it worked.
Yeah, and at the time there really wasn't the same type of information available like there is today on it. And the information that was available was really confusing. And so what we started doing is like Shade mentioned, we started researching, reading, buying programs, doing everything we could to learn more and more about this. But really, we figured out that the way we're going to learn by is actually attending auctions and experiencing. Even if we weren't buying expensive properties or expensive liens, just going through that process was really how we started educating ourselves.
Yeah, that was really where the rubber started to meet the road. We started to figure out how things actually worked was when we began attending the auctions, and we began to deal directly with them. And then from there, it was a matter of trying to figure out how it worked in different places.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a challenge there in the beginning, but eventually we eventually figured it out, and we created a training program that we ended up providing to a lot of seminar companies that we basically private label for them. So for a lot of seminar companies, they have big names, but they need products. So we'd provide those to them, and they would put their logo on them and use them.
Yeah, so we were the ghost writers, kind of the behind the scenes guys for a lot of these training companies. And we did that for about a decade, and it was great. We got a chance to work with over 60,000 students all across the country. Got to go and train at different events all throughout. And so it was a great experience, but we got tired of being, not really having control. We were essentially just a company that provided services to other seminar companies. And so we finally decided in 2016 that we were just going to quit working with the seminar companies altogether and just offer our program directly online.
Yeah, in fact, I'm sure that if a lot of you have been through the seminar companies or been to a lot of seminars, you probably know that seminar companies are sales-based organizations. They are organizations that are first and foremost centered on their sales, and everything else is kind of an afterthought. And that never sat right with us. We always knew we could provide training for lower prices, make it more affordable, and that we could do a better job. And that was really why I think when we started tax sale support, we've been so much happier with it. It's worked
Yeah.
out great. We love providing training directly to people. You know, I think it does enable you to do training for a lot lower. I mean, really what we did was we took a package they were selling for thousands of dollars and just made it our membership.
Yeah, exactly. So we took, the fancy books and CDs that came in a slick kit, and we just made them online. You could download them, you could review them, and essentially charged a monthly fee. And our goal in creating this program was to create an education program that we can give you everything possible to be successful at a low cost.
Yeah, it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money to learn how to do this. In fact, it can really cost you as much or as little as you want. You know, it's kind of dependent on you. But what we did want to get away from was people being forced to really just forced to the seminar companies, because for a long time it just felt like you either went to the seminar companies or there was nothing else out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a little bit about us and kind of our background and why we love teaching investors about tax liens and deeds.
I think it's important to us that it's important to us that we offer good deals, that people are getting good deals, that people are happy, and also that they're learning how to do it. And that's really been the best part for this, has been all of the success. You know, we get success stories almost weekly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if we're talking about students that are doing deals, even multiple times a week, whether that be buying new property or selling property. But really, that kind of brings up the question: why even get started investing in tax liens or tax deeds?
Yeah, there's a lot of information that's out there. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there too, because in some cases they're trying to make it sound too good.
Yeah.
But what we're interested in are just the straight facts with tax liens and tax deeds. We're not interested in any of the fluff or anything that's not true. We're really only interested in what's actually achievable and what you can actually do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of why, there are a lot of reasons why. But the first is that we're talking about different investments, but with tax liens, we can earn higher rates of return than we can with stocks or mutual funds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, not only that, but with tax liens, you know what your interest is. You don't know how long it's going to be, how long before you're going to get your money back, but you're earning 1.5% per month, or 1% a month, or 2% a month, or whatever it is. You already know what your returns are. And just like Shade said, we're talking about double-digit returns. And so you have the opportunity to make 12, 14, 16, 18%, 24%.
And unlike the stock market, tax liens are not affected by fluctuations in the market. They're not affected by that at all. In fact, if anything, as things with the market change, conditions with tax liens probably get better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, just yesterday, the stock market hit an all-time high, which is great for investors, but do we think that it's always going to be in an all-time high?
Yeah, you also hear them talking about this crash that's going to happen.
Well, and even if that didn't happen, it's not always going to be at an all-time high. It's always going to have an ebb and flow. And so that's the one thing about tax liens, is that there isn't that. It's guaranteed by state law. It's backed by real estate, and that's what's so important about tax liens, is the property is the collateral for the debt that you're paying.
Yeah. In fact, really, we're going to get into more detail about exactly how these work. But when we're talking about tax liens, we're talking about an investment that is highly secure and offers a great rate of return. Tax liens are basically guaranteed by state laws, and they're backed by real estate. So there's really a limited number of outcomes there. And it's part of what makes it such a good deal. But we'll make sure everybody understands exactly how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. With tax deeds, they really are one of the cheapest way to acquire real estate, period.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way that's cheaper than tax deeds. It's a unique situation that makes these properties available, and I don't think there's another buying method out there that can offer them as cheap as tax deeds are.
Yeah, now that doesn't mean you can buy tax deeds in every market, but they are in a ton of markets, and those markets, really are the cheapest way that you could ever buy real estate.
Yeah, they're the only way that you can buy real estate where the party that's selling the property has no personal interest in how much it sells for. You know, they don't care how much it sells for. That's why they have an opening bid amount. That's basically their reserve. So, you know, it really is tremendous opportunities to buy there for far under the market value. There was also this fact that there's new inventory constantly being added because we've got so many different counties and municipalities out there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's over, 3,300 counties, and that's not even including all the cities, because there's a ton of cities that will actually handle the tax sales as well. So we have all of these auctions. Every single state, all 50 are going to have some type of auction. And that's also, in addition to here within the United States, we also provide lists, and there's also auctions happening in Canada as well.
Yeah, the same is true of Canada. They have kind of a tax deed system that they use in Canada, but it's very similar to what's used throughout counties here in the U.S. And so, yeah, lots and lots of opportunities, everywhere really. And this really, I think, is something that I think that this gets underestimated, just how big of a deal this is, that you've got this constant new inventory that's rolling in. There's always going to be new opportunities with tax sales because property taxes are an ongoing tax.
Yeah, absolutely. Shade's exactly right. There's always fresh inventory, and there's always new auctions that are being added, new types of sales. Just to kind of give you a quick example, Georgia, is a redemption deed state. Well, now they're starting to sell
Tax deeds.
Yeah, and then they've actually gone through and have some, have a kind of even a more special type of foreclosure, which they're even more sellable. There's different states like Colorado and Arizona that are typically tax lien states that are now selling tax deeds on liens that don't get purchased. They're selling in deed sales.
Yeah, we're seeing and witnessing kind of an evolution with the counties. We're seeing them evolve as the internet, is making things easier. Like, for instance, selling property and listing property is a lot easier now than it ever was for counties before. I mean, 20 years ago, if counties were going to list something for sale, they'd put it in the newspaper, and that was it.
Yeah, well, and what's funny is there's still counties that are doing the exact same thing, just still putting it in the newspaper, but because they have an online auction website, and because, there's, different companies out there that are getting those lists and providing them, it's driving business.
Something else that we're starting to see too is some of these counties that have been just sitting on property. I mean, every county has properties that never get paid property taxes on. And they have this county held inventory, and we're starting to see some of the counties out there list their county held inventory and sell it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Almost like a giveaway.
Well, what the counties are doing is they're trying to find the very best way to, bring in income and get rid of any excess property. So, whether that be through over-the-counter opportunities, or even what we call resales, where they offer the property up starting at $100. These are these type of opportunities that are out there to acquire property.
Yeah, their primary concern is not how much money they're trying to get the property, because they already have tried that and it hasn't worked. That's why the property's sitting on the books. So at that point, they just want a new owner. It doesn't matter who buys it, and it doesn't really matter what the price is. To a lot of these counties, it's really far more important just to have somebody that lives in the property and that can pay the property taxes. And
as far as property taxes, they've been around for a long time. It's not something that's new. In fact, they were some of the first taxes that were here within the United States.
If you want to talk taxation, property taxes were one of the first taxes that we had here, and they're really one of the only taxes that makes sense. It is a tax that's based on the value of the property, and it's a tax that basically goes to help pay for local resources that are there. Most of the things provided by local governments, so public safety, law enforcement, all these things, they cost a lot of money, and that's really where property taxes come in. They have to have some source of revenue, and so they tax people based on the value of their property, but you're always going to get people that don't pay that.
Yeah.
So you've got to have some kind of an enforcement system in place.
Well, and one thing that's important to understand is these taxes go to pay for everything. so much of what we actually use is paid for by property taxes, not by state taxes or federal taxes. So when we're talking about school, education, police, fire departments, roads, most of that stuff is actually being paid through property taxes. The stuff that we actually use is usually paid that way.
Yeah. In fact, most of the services are paid for by local counties. Public education takes a big chunk out of it for a lot of counties, but they have lots of ongoing bills, things that have constant billing happening. And so they need the money in order to operate, and property taxes are how they do that in large part. When we were trying to figure out how it worked all across the country, what we were able to figure out was that we could break it down into about 3 systems that would basically describe how every place, in the United States operated and worked. And what we found was that most of the states and counties would use one of these 3 systems, but there were a few of them out there that would actually use more than one. But if you understood these 3 systems, you'd pretty well understand how tax law enforcement worked anywhere.
Yeah, well, in tax liens and tax deeds, those were pretty familiar, those terms, when we first got started and we started reading in books. But we found these other states that weren't really a tax lien state and weren't really a tax deed state, states like Texas, where they are a little bit different, and so that's where we actually classified the term tax redemption deeds. So the county may not actually call it that, but that's what we've classified these type of properties for the last 15 years now.
Yeah. Now let's talk about what liens are for a second, because they're fairly easy to explain, but also, there's a couple of questions that we have here, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to pause here in a minute, and we'll go through and answer all of them, because there's some really great questions. I can see questions about tax lien bidding. I can see questions from a Canadian investor that's wondering about investing, so we're going to answer those questions here in just a minute. I don't want you to feel like we're going to ignore you, because we're definitely going to answer them all. The first thing to understand about tax liens is that a tax lien is basically a legal claim that can be placed against property because of a debt that hasn't been paid. And in this case, it's because of delinquent taxes. But the nature of that lien, though, prevents the property from being transferred. So it prevents the transfer of ownership until the lien has been removed. So it's a major problem for property owners. It can also lead to the loss of property.
Yeah, well, a property owner can't sell the property, refinance, do anything like that until they've taken care of that tax lien. And so what the county does is they take those tax liens and they offer them up to investors that are willing to pay the delinquent taxes. Now, the reason why investors are willing to pay off this back taxes is because these counties and cities offer the investors a great interest rate return. So that'll usually be dictated by state law. For example, Florida's 18%. All of the counties there essentially will start out at 18%.
Yeah. In fact, one thing that's important to note about this, some people see tax liens as some kind of a vulture strategy or something, and that's really quite far from the truth. The reality is the county has to have the investors in order to operate, in order to work. The investors have to be there. If the county can't bring investors to the tax sale to buy these liens, they can't continue to operate. They don't have a way to really enforce their tax system. So it's far from being like that. This is actually something that's totally necessary, and that's part of why it's such a good investment. If counties were trying to rip people off, and had some bad investment, nobody would ever come back. They need consistent tax lien investors to buy up their tax liens.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And 95% of the time, you're just going to get your money back and essentially, just get the interest rate return. But that's what makes tax liens unique, is they have that foreclosure right. Meaning if the property owner doesn't pay you back your money and your interest within what's called a redemption period, then the lien holder can actually foreclose and become the new property owner.
Yeah. But what happens the vast majority of the time is that people don't want to lose their property because of delinquent property taxes, and it's normally a pretty small amount compared to what the property's worth, and so most of the time people pay it off. And when that happens, the investor, well, basically the county removes the lien from the property, but the investor gets a check in the mail. You know, so it works out really well for investors. It's such an easy investment. But you know, let's talk about let's just talk about the tax lien cycle, and then I'm going to hit some of these questions here because we really have some good questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the tax lien, 3 things are going to happen on the day of the sale.
Yeah, on the day of the sale, first off, the lien's issued against the property. It begins accruing interest, and the redemption period begins. So that actually all happens whether the tax lien gets purchased or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the day of the auction, all of those things are going to start taking place, and essentially it'll be offered up at the auction.
Yeah, it's gonna be offered up at the tax sale, and once it's purchased, of course, all these things are happening here. The lien is accruing interest, and the redemption period begins. That redemption period could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. It all depends on what state law dictates. But essentially, there's really only 2 outcomes, you know, and they're both dependent on whether the property owner pays off the county or whether they don't, and the redemption period expires. But if they do, then it's simple enough. You know, the county gets the money they need to operate.
Yeah, exactly. The lien will be removed. The investor will be paid back.
Yeah, just like here. You know, when the delinquent owner pays the county what they owe, the county now has the money that they would have needed had the person just paid on time. But when you pay your delinquent taxes, you're also paying penalties and fees, and so that means, you know, they're paying additional amount, which gives the county the money to cut a check to the investor for their initial investment plus the interest they earned.
Yeah, so if somebody purchased $1,000 tax lien, you know, they would essentially get a check for, and it was earning 18%, they would get a check for, you know, $1,000 plus additional $180.
Yeah, if it was for 18% exactly in 1 year. Now this is all dependent too upon when the property owner pays off their delinquent debt. So, you know, for the investor's perspective, they're basically just kind of waiting for a check in the mail until, let's say, it doesn't happen and a redemption period expires. Like, let's say it's been more than 2 years.
Yeah, and one thing to quickly talk about as far as when you're going to receive that check, a question that we get a lot from new investors is, do I receive a check in the mail every day or every month, you know, for my interest? No, you're not going to get paid back until the property owner pays back, which in turn, you know, which he pays back the county. Then the county will go ahead and pay you, and you'll make your entire interest rate at that time. You're not going to make any, you know, monthly payments or anything. You know, they're not going to send out monthly interest or anything like that. You just make it once it's been redeemed.
Yep. That is true. You know, you're going to get one check there at the end of the investment. And now here is some great questions here regarding, you know, let's answer some of the different lien questions here. You know, because there are a lot of great ones here, some of them about bidding. You know, so if the tax lien is for sale for $1,000, but the price gets bid up to $3,000, does the investor get interest on $3,000 or $1,000? It's a really good question. What we're talking about here is a certain type of bidding system, you know, which is premium bidding. You know,
Yeah.
And premium bidding is where you basically they're increasing the price of the lien as the bidding medium. So rather than bidding down the interest rate, they're going to bid up the price on the lien. But this has well, certain disadvantages.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You know, and as far as premium bid itself, it's not as commonly used as, you know, something like bid down the interest rate. It's usually used in a state like Colorado. But as far as your question, do you get paid for that overbid amount? It's really going to depend on the state, but usually the answer is no.
Yeah, most of the time you're only going to make the interest on your, you know, on the $1,000 or so that you're paying for the lien, and so the higher you increase that premium amount, the lower you're effectively, you know, you're lowering your interest rate by doing so. And so now Also, I see one of the questions here was, wouldn't it be $360 interest because the redemption period was 2 years? Well, that's only if it went for a full 2 years. So the redemption period could be 2 years. If it went for two full, if it went for 2 full years and then it redeemed, exactly after that long, then you would get, that would be 18% times 2.
Yeah.
That would be your 36%.
Yeah, and if it was you were making 18% and it was only 6 months, instead of making 18%, you're going to make 9%.
Right. So it's based on the on the time period. And now also another question here is can we get lists of properties that are in the redemption period? And yeah, actually what you're talking about there is over-the-counter tax liens, which sometimes tax liens don't sell at the auction. And if they don't sell at the auction, they sit on the books and are available to purchase. And so you can buy these tax liens, but while they're sitting on the books, that redemption period is still, still ticking down for them.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we can show you some here in a minute of some examples of tax liens that were purchased exactly like that.
Yeah. Now, we also have some people here that are from Canada. And if you are from Canada, what you're going to need in order to invest here in the U.S. and in fact, what you need in order to invest in any lien or deed when you go to purchase these from a county is they're going to require either a social security number or a tax ID number or an EIN. They're going to require one of those because that's essentially how they record the purchase and what they report to the IRS. So getting that set up here in the U.S. is essentially what you have to have set up in order to purchase. You also have to have U.S. based funding.
Yeah. The process of actually buying for Canadians isn't hard at all. The work comes in getting everything set up to be able to buy. And so that's if you're buying, within the United States.
Yeah. Now, another question here is, is bidding down the interest rate a consistent issue? And I guess it probably depends on the auctions. In some cases, sure. I think if it's a bidding medium, there are auctions where it gets. We've seen plenty of stuff get bid down to zero for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, depending on the competition and the auction, there could be properties that, bid up high in the premium bid. In fact, we've seen that in Colorado this year has had a lot higher bidding in years past. In fact, it's almost to the point where we probably wouldn't invest in most of the counties this year because the bidding was so high. But it's just going to depend. And then we've seen other sales where, where you're getting most of your liens at the highest interest rate. So it just kind of depends.
We've got a lot of Canadians here on the line, it looks like, and
it might be worth putting out and doing a training.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a book, as part of our membership program, we have a book that explains all about how Canadian tax sales work.
Yeah, and also, how Canadian investors can get set up. But, basically, you might want to look into getting a registering agent to help you guys get your accounts here set up. They can cost a little bit, but they can save you a lot of time and can make things dramatically easier.
Well, the biggest thing about getting an ITN number is you've got to send in your driver's license or your passport or something like that, and you've actually got to send in the real copy. So, if you want to do it on yourself, you would have to send in that passport, and they're going to send it back to you, but you're not going to, it's going to be tied up for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If you use one of these registering agents, it may cost a couple $100, but you don't have to send in your document. They can take some type of certified copy of it and send that in instead.
Yeah. Another question is in Georgia, is the interest rate on their tax liens 10% or 20%? And Georgia is actually what we would consider a redemption deed state. And so well, we'll see if we can explain it here to you as we talk here about redemption deeds, because redemption deeds actually pay out typically a flat penalty. It's usually a flat rate that instead of being one that accrues with time. But here's show some different examples here of tax liens. We've got a bunch of them here to show you. So These are our different member deal, and we want to show you here the purpose behind buying a lien is to have it redeem and to earn a high interest rate return. But what these all have in common and what we want you to see is the tremendous investment security that is there for their money.
Yeah, absolutely. All of these tax liens were purchased over the counter. So these aren't tax liens that we went to the auction, we bid. These are ones that didn't get purchased that we were able to find through over the counter list and our students were able to buy. And so with all of these properties aren't the most sexy properties in the world, but they all have great value. They're all livable, usable structures. And as far as the lien amount versus the assessed value, we're looking at a very, very, good, what we call a bid to value ratio or lien to value ratio, where the first ones that we showed you were, single family homes. This is examples of commercial properties. The one on the bottom is actually more of an apartment. But anyway, you see, the one on the top left, $938 with a value of $51,000, or $857 with a value of $46,000.
Yeah, with all of these liens, really, the outcome in most of these is always going to be, that it redeems, that the person gets a check in the mail. But if they didn't and the redemption period expired, then the lien holders can foreclose on these properties, and that's a tremendous amount of power, that these liens have after that redemption period expires. But ultimately, it's going to be one outcome, or the other. Now, there's some really good questions here. Looks like Jerry's got some really good questions here for us, and they're kind of about tax deeds, because tax deeds are the other system here. They are the second system we're talking about, and the tax deed system is really quite simple. Basically, what the state law does is it sets out a redemption period that every property owner in the state has. So maybe that's a redemption period of 3 years or 4 years, or whatever that time period is. They give them that time period, but at the end of it, the county forecloses.
Yeah, absolutely. So like here in Utah, where we're located, there's a 5-year period. So if we quit paying our property taxes after 5 years, the county's just going to go ahead and foreclose on the property themselves. They don't offer liens to investors. They just kind of eat that cost. And then once they went ahead and did the foreclosure, then they're going to offer that property up at a tax deed auction.
Yeah, and the opening bid will generally be what's owed in taxes and fees, and so that might be 3 years worth of taxes and fees or 4 years, but that's generally not going to be that high of an amount, for the opening bid amount here. Now, hey, by the way, here, just one last thing here on the liens, because I see a good question here from Mark. They were good examples. By the way, those liens we were looking at were in a couple different states. Were they all in one state? I forget.
Yeah, they're all available on our over-the-counter list.
Yeah. Now but is there a simple way to check for other government liens on these same properties? So when we're buying liens, we don't worry actually about government liens at all. One of the nice things about buying liens is that our due diligence is fairly simple, because we're not actually buying the property itself. We're simply buying a lien against the property. So we don't have to worry about things like different liens against the property and stuff like that. As long as the numbers make sense, then we'll move forward with it, because most of the time they're going to redeem, but the numbers are so skewed. It's such a good deal that if for any reason somebody doesn't pay it off, it's always worth it to foreclose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now with tax deeds, the opportunity that we really have with tax deeds is simply just to buy property outright that the county is foreclosed on.
And one thing about tax deeds is that's where we're going to do the additional due diligence.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to, if it's a structured property, we're going to send somebody out there. We're going to view the property ourselves. We're going to go through and check for governmental liens, because with the tax deed foreclosure, in most cases, the foreclosure actually eliminates any type of any type of non-governmental lien, mortgage, judgment, anything like that the property is no longer collateral for that. And so The only thing that we really need to be concerned about, that we need to really research, is things like governmental liens, because some of those things can still attach to the property after that foreclosure process.
Yeah, really, it's kind of the matter of having one government lien kind of come up against another, government foreclosure. At least when you have a government issued lien against the property. That's one of the issues with government liens. Like, for instance, a tax lien. A tax lien is known as a first position lien, and what it means is that it can't be wiped out or extinguished by typical foreclosures. Now, there can be other kinds of government liens as well, things like a grass cutting lien, or some kind of a nuisance lien or something like that. If it's issued by a government entity, then it most likely is going to have that first position power as well. And so we have to worry about those because they don't get wiped out in that foreclosure process like most everything else does.
Yeah, absolutely. And with both of these examples, these were examples that were purchased by our coaching students. You can see the one on the top left, our student paid $30,000 for this. And actually, once he purchased it, he was contacted by somebody that had been looking at the property as well. This was actually purchased on an over-the-counter list. So he actually had purchased it off the over-the-counter list for $30,000, had an offer within 30 days from another investor that was looking on the over-the-counter list, just didn't buy it. He beat him to it and offered him an additional $50,000 on top. So offered him $80,000 for what he paid $30,000. So within a, really about a month period of time, he was able to make, $50,000 on it.
Yeah, that deal made sense because he was able to do it quickly, and if he was going to hang on to it, the holding cost on it, like annual taxes, were $8,000. Just like it was a $200,000 property, the total value on it. And so what's nice about being a tax deed investor is we're stepping in as a wholesaler. He was able to buy this and still wholesale it, and the buyer still got a good deal on it too. There's enough profitability on that for everybody that's involved.
Yeah, exactly. The property on the right was just a nice building lot. You can see it's actually next to a Wendy's there. Just a commercial lot, paved lot. Paid $1,800 for it. Sold it, a short time later for $12,500. Made over $10,000 on it. So with these type of and this property here was actually worth, he sold it for $10,500, but it was worth $12,500. And so even though, he made a great profit off buying the property, he actually still sold it for 50% of the assessed value.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was worth $24,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it had good value, and he's still selling it for a good deal to the property owner, to the person that bought it. We've got some other examples here. Now also, one of the questions was what is our proof that the county sent out notices to all of the lien holders on a sold tax deed that before it's foreclosed on? So actually, that's part of where the state laws come in. State law and judicial foreclosure are what tell us that they did everything they needed to do there. And that's because they legally have to. They actually have to go through the steps. They have to. They generally will do a title search on the property to figure out who all the lien holders are, and they have to send out foreclosure notices to anybody that has financial interest in the property. And that foreclosure process there has to be proven. They have to be able to show it.
The only way it could be invalid is if the property owner actually paid the property taxes and somehow the county made a mistake, and that's incredibly rare. And so it's not really something that we worry about.
We have seen it though.
Yeah, and personally. And in that scenario, we were able to go ahead and put the property owner back into the old property owner's hands, make our money back, and everything was great. But one thing about tax deed investing is you can actually get started. You don't need thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. You can see this example here on the right. This is an example, one of our coaching students, she picked it up for $100, sold it within 30 days to one of the neighbors there for $2,900 and made a $2,800 return. Now, you're not gonna quit your job and move to the Bahamas and retire off $2,800, but she was able to make essentially a 2,800% return within 30 days. And more importantly, she was able to gain all that knowledge and insight and understanding and actually going through the process.
Yeah. Now, let's see here. Now, a good question here, is does a federal or state lien trump a county lien? What's interesting is when it comes to government liens, they don't really have power over one another. What's more important there is which one came first. So it's really a matter of which one came first. But then what they'll generally do with liens, like for instance, let's say there was an IRS lien on on a property that you buy. Even then, the IRS has its lien against it, but doesn't necessarily mean that the IRS is for sure going to take it. And so if we
and the IRS is really the only one that can take it.
Yeah.
A city lien or like a grass cut lien or something like that, the city's not going to foreclose and try to take the property off of that. And in most cases, the law wouldn't justify it either way. So, like Shade said, that's really kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah. Now, let's see here. Let's also look. Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to say that's important though is a lot of the people that we started working with in the beginning didn't have very much capital to start with, and that is one of the best parts about tax deeds is the ability to it doesn't take $100,000 to get started.
Yeah, well, even some of these properties we've shown here were purchased by one of our students where they started purchasing them on the lower dollars, and then if we click to the next page, we can see essentially graduating, doing bigger deals.
Mm-hmm.
These are two homes that were purchased by our coaching students over the last couple of weeks. The home on the left, Baby Blue, was purchased for around $6,200, has a value around $60,000 with a potential profit of $50,000. And the property on the right was purchased for $8,500. It's worth $89,000 with a potential profit of $80,000. So these are deals that, of course, haven't been sold yet, but have been purchased and are going to be in the process of doing deals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, these are all great examples here, and we've got some more too. These are both good lots. And good examples of the kinds of properties that we try to target, the kinds of properties that we love to go after. By the way, this is being recorded. We'll be able to get recording out to everybody of the webinar, so that won't be a problem at all. I noticed though there's some questions about Georgia, and we're going to talk about that in a second here with redemption deeds.
Yeah, and one quick thing to mention about tax deeds, and I guess it could be as redemption deeds as well, is there's a ton of land out there, and there really is an opportunity as tax deed investors to buy land. I mean, we just showed you guys some great examples of homes that were purchased for still, around 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
So still we're able to get pretty good deals. But, when it comes to land, there's such an advantage because we don't need to go out and view the property. So all of these properties that were land properties were able to be purchased without ever going out there, except for the $30,000 one because he lived in the area. The 27 acres, all of these lots, these examples we've showed you, the investor purchased it without ever going to the area, without ever viewing the property, and was able to do everything online.
Yeah. There are lots of still tons of great questions here. Some of the questions here. Let's see here. Can we show how to buy over-the-counter tax liens and deeds in Florida? We'll see if we can jump off. After we get done with the slides, if we have time here. Another question here is how is the average small investor able to locate viable properties when there are many large investors and institutions with deep pockets purchasing liens and deeds in bulk? I think
it's knowing, it's having knowledge of when at least my opinion, is having knowledge of when the auctions are taking place. And part of that, is being part of the membership program where you're going to see all of the auctions. We really can't, we don't have a crystal ball that can tell us which auctions are going to have less competition, which auctions are going to have more. But usually the smaller county auctions, things like that, are going to have, you're not going to have the institutional bidders that you would in a huge major auction.
Yeah, one of the ways that we get around it is that we look at the results of past sales, and we try to use the results from past sales to give us some kind of indication about what's going to happen with future sales. And even then, we might still, get in an auction, where we don't buy anything. We might bid on 10 properties and not win anything. That happens all the time if we want to get it at the price that we want. But we're still going to find auctions. Just last week we were talking with one of our coaching people that was interested, I guess, that was involved with the Colorado auctions. And we were hearing about liens that were selling for crazy amounts. Some auctions, it just happens. It only takes two crazy bidders, to bid things up. And the other thing too is that tax liens can be purchased in bulk in some cases, but tax deeds not as much so. I guess some counties will put some of the things, into bulk. But the big institutional bidders, I don't know if they're out there buying up so many of the deeds.
No. It's really the tax lien certificates, and even then it's going to be, limited to certain type of auctions. Miami, Florida, would be an area that maybe Capital One or one of those companies would come in and buy tax liens in, because there's $50 million or $100 million worth of tax liens available within the county.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about redemption deeds for a minute, and we'll jump back into questions here. So redemption deeds are kind of a third system, kind of a weird hybrid system between tax liens and tax deeds. And there are a handful of states out there that utilize redemption deed system.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we mentioned, when we first got started, we didn't quite know what to call this group of states, like Texas, like Georgia. And that's where we really kind of came up with the term redemption deed, because that's kind of what they are. They're deeds with a redemption period attached to them, kind of like a tax lien certificate. Now, there's a couple of things that separate redemption deeds from a regular tax lien and deed. First of all, redemption deeds generally have shorter redemption periods, usually 2 months, 6 months. The very longest is for homestead properties in Texas at 2 years, but everything besides that is really a year or shorter.
Yeah, there's a higher likelihood of acquiring the property with a redemption deed than there is with a tax lien. I think that a higher percentage of them, I don't know exactly what the percentages are, but instead of being 95, maybe it's 50%.
Yeah, and it definitely could be as high as 50% or higher, on certain type of properties, because we're not just bidding down the interest rate, we're actually bidding up the price. And so let's say a home comes up for auction for 10 grand, it could sell for 20 grand. So, you're paying back the 10 grand, plus you're paying back an additional $10,000 over top of that. Now the property owner not only has to pay back their 10 grand, they have to pay back the 20 grand plus a 25% return. So they really are kind of a little bit more like a deed, but they've given this owner a grace period where they can still get their property back.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like they go through the foreclosure and the property owner loses the property, but after you buy it, there's going to be a set time period where you can't turn around and just sell the property. It hasn't been recorded into your name yet. The county won't actually, record the deed until this redemption period has expired. So the difficulty for for the investor, at least if you're looking to acquire property, is that there's going to be a time period after it in which you're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. In Texas, though, they do extend ownership rights to the deed holder, so you could actually rent out the property during the redemption period. You could live in the property. You're just not going to want to put a lot of capital into the property other than maintenance and upkeep. Otherwise, you may not be able to get that money out of the property if the property owner does redeem.
Yeah. Another question here is, can I pay with a credit card, and buying deeds? We actually paid with a credit card last week.
Yeah,
with Michigan.
You can't in all auctions, but they will allow it in many of the online auctions.
Yeah.
And it is starting to become more common. 10 years ago, that was completely impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, even the online auctions, you had to wire in certified funds, to be able to do it. So that is something that's a little bit different. In some of the auctions, they will allow that.
Yeah. These are some examples here of redemption deed properties here. I think these ones are in Texas, I believe. And I think that with Texas, it's a little bit different. Another thing about redemption deeds is that instead of paying out an interest rate that accrues over a period of time, their interest rate is a flat penalty rate. It is a flat rate that's paid out regardless of when that redeems. So, for instance, in Texas, Texas has a 6-month redemption period on most of their property. So, basically means that if you buy a property there with the tax sale in Texas, that it's going to be 6 months before you can do anything with it. And during that 6-month period of time, if the property owner were to redeem it, Texas has a 25% annual penalty rate. And so that's another thing about Texas that kind of makes it attractive is for the property owner to redeem, they're going to have to come up with, with what it costs. So you pay $10,000 for the property. If they're to redeem, you're going to get back a check essentially for $12,500. It's 25% flat return, and that's even if it occurred 2 months after the auction.
Yeah, that's one thing that's sweet about them is that if you do get redeemed, you will get that full penalty regardless of when it does redeem. So if it does redeem early, at least you were paid back a good return for the time and effort that you put into it.
Yeah, but in Texas they also have a homestead exemption so for properties that have that are classified as homestead properties, it's basically like a classification that you can get with the county to make it to lower your taxes, basically, if it's owner occupied.
Yes, homestead properties and certain types of classified farmland like farms, they give them a 2-year period versus the 6 months. Anything else, non-homestead home, a rental, commercial land, anything like that only has a 6-month redemption period. So really, you don't have that long a period before you're full, where where the owners can no longer redeem the property at all. So with any of these properties here that we're looking at, if we went ahead and bidded on one of these properties and they're not a homestead property, then at that point, over the 6 months, we could clean up the property, we could rent it out. We're not going to do any hardcore rehab on it until later. But after that 6 months, it's no longer going to be, the property owner can no longer take it.
Yeah, and a really good question here that Mark has here is, an example in Texas, if the tax deficit is $10,000, but the bid goes up to $30,000 with the penalty, if the owner, what would the penalty be? I think the owner redeemed, would it be 25% of the $10,000 or of the $30,000? I believe it's 25% of the $30,000.
Well, yeah, depending on the state.
But I mean, in Texas, though,
Texas,
yeah, I think that's how it works. I believe that the delinquent property owner, in addition to having, what they have to come up with, their delinquent penalties and fees here, it goes up though after that auction because they have to cover that flat 25% rate.
And they have to cover the overbid as well.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not easy to do that, which is why you get a lot higher percentages, of the properties that don't redeem.
Yeah.
Another question here that Jim had is, what would be a good state, for a new investor to start in? And
it's really kind of depending if you're looking at tax deeds or you're looking at redemption deeds, you're looking at tax liens.
Yeah, and kind of what you're trying to buy, because in some cases we'll have people start in their own backyard.
Yeah.
In other cases,
it's really almost, and part of answer your question is really part of our investor profile system that we created 15 years ago, because we had the same problem. We actually, when we first started, we actually went and worked for some of these large seminar companies because that we were hoping that we could get their training and that their training was going to give us something that we didn't know.
This was, yeah, when we were about 20, before, we were still broke, we were still trying to get programs anywhere we could. We found out that some of these seminar companies, had these really fancy programs, that they were local to us, and that one of the fringe benefits of working there was that they would give you access to their training. And so we actually, left whatever jobs we were doing and went to go and work for these companies just so we could get access to their training. And I remember, this was like a big ordeal to finally get access to training. When we finally got it, it was junk.
Yeah, it was, and in fact, while we were working, there's time where I worked just pretty much talking to people that were upset and disappointed with their tax lien program. And so, that 6 months or a year that I did that was invaluable to us, because it gave us all of the things that were wrong, and all the problems that they had. But to bring that story, or the reason I'm telling this story, is because that's how we created our investor profiles. Is we said, how is an investor ever going to know where to get started? Either tax liens, tax deed redemption deeds, there's 50 different states, there's over the counters, there's online auctions, there's live auctions. And so we put together these investor profiles, which helps you determine, okay, this is the profile type I am in. And then that profile will have a list of states that breaks down the states that you can use that. So instead of, trying to pick through 50 states, you end up picking through 5 or 10 states, and then can narrow it down the state that you'd like to get started.
Yeah. We basically tried to put together a system to simplify getting started, so that you can pick the strategy that seems to fit you best and your resources best. And then from that, you have a list of states where you can get started. And then you can read about the states and figure out, because not all states are the same. Some states are going to have better opportunities than others. And so you can kind of narrow down those states until you're down to your top 2, and then it's kind of a matter of opportunities. You look for the opportunities.
You think that lady right there was happy she won? Essentially, when it comes to buying tax liens or tax deeds, there's really 3 different methods, and 2 methods, I guess you could break it down in a way. But we're either buying at a live auction, through an online auction, or through over the counter.
Yeah, basically these are all of them. Live auctions are the oldest system. They're also the most common, even still. There's more online auctions, more live auctions than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. There's some states that have moved over to a lot of online auctions, like Florida, but even there, they still have tax lien auctions that are being held online. Being held in live person.
Yeah, and it'll probably be that way for a long time. Although we believe the future of tax sales will be online.
Yeah, well, one thing to quickly mention too about live auctions is if you have a live auction in your area, it is worth attending just for the education. Me and Shade attended auctions when we first got started, that we knew we didn't have enough money to buy anything. We're going to a big deed sale, the properties are expensive, we've maybe got $1,000 between us, maybe we can pick up something small, but we're not going to win. But we wanted the opportunity to see, and that's really how that we learned. And the other point would be that online live auctions can be one of the best ways to get great deals.
Yeah, also here, I noticed that one of the questions here, if you register to bid and you don't win, is it refundable? Yeah, in fact, counties will let you know if they charge you anything, but they're most likely not going to charge more than $20 or something to participate in an auction. But they're going to be pretty good about giving you back every penny, because they are a government entity there, and they don't even have a place to put the extra money.
Yeah, and live auctions, you may not have to put down any type of deposit.
It's usually just with online.
Yeah, it's mostly going to be online auctions where they have some type of deposit that's required, and that's to protect the rest of us that are bidding. They don't want somebody bidding on tax liens or tax deeds that they can't actually buy, and then not being able to be, purchased by another investor that would. But online auctions were something that we first started noticing, 2005, 4, something around there. There was a couple of them, but it really given an opportunity for investors to invest across the country, anywhere, through all of these online auctions.
And it's only getting better all the time. That's one thing we're noticing is just the constant evolution with it. Another question here is, can you buy tax deeds without using your own money? There are ways you can do it.
It really would be through some type of a credit. We're actually
or a hard money lender or something.
Yeah, well, and we're looking into hard money lenders as far as how they're willing to do it. That's part of the thing about tax sale investing, is that you do have to have the capital up front. In fact, usually sometimes the county wants the money at the end of the auction, and so, I mean, directly if it's a live sale or an online sale. And so, that you do need to have that capital. There's ways that you can use other people's money to do deals and to fund deals, but it's not like you can go out and get a traditional mortgage or financing.
Yeah, not quite like that. The over-the-counter is the third way to buy, which basically is just where you're buying it from the county directly sometime after the sale. And over-the-counter has a lot of advantages. I mean, of course, the best properties sometimes are going to get sold at the auction. But there can still be a lot of opportunities after the sale and for stuff that doesn't get sold.
Yeah, well, all of the examples that we showed you guys for tax lien certificates today were purchased over the counter. All of the properties except for the 2 homes that we showed in the tax deed examples today, the student deals, were purchased over the counter.
Yeah.
Those 2 homes were purchased in an auction type setting, a resale. But there's a ton of opportunity, whether you're looking for tax lien certificates, whether you're looking for tax deeds, to buy them directly over the counter. And the advantage is, you get them for just the back taxes, or you get them the interest rate at the highest interest rate.
Yeah. That is probably, with tax liens, you get that. That's the biggest advantage, is earning the maximum interest rate return. So that you're not directly competing with anybody, but also you can buy them partway, into the redemption period, so that it has less of that redemption period to go.
Yeah, in fact, some of those tax lien certificates that we showed in those examples, that's exactly the strategy that our investors are doing with them, or implementing with them, is that they're already into their redemption period, so they can foreclose on them within 3 months or 6 months. And that's also going to help them get back their money in a shorter period of time. That's one advantage just over the counters, is if you buy into the redemption period, I can foreclose on it in 6 months, so I'm not going to be waiting 3 years to get my money. I'll foreclose on it in 3 months or 6 months, and I mean, they're going to get my money or get the property.
Yeah. Now, what we would like to do is be able to, well, first of all, talk about the membership. If you guys want to join, we don't generally spend a ton of time going over this stuff, but our membership is $39 a month, so it's not really, and you can cancel anytime, so it's low commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. If you decide that you're interested and want to do a year up front, it's only $29 a month. You can cancel at any time, and we offer a money back guarantee, because we really know that as far as tax sale education, it's the best value that there is available.
Yeah. How risky is it to buy a tax deed sight unseen? That's actually, it's a good question. It's a really good question, and it depends on the kind of property that you're buying. There's some that we won't buy sight unseen. So, for instance, if there's some kind of structure or improvement on it, then we won't buy it sight unseen. We have to have an on-site evaluation performed. But if it's raw land, or if it's vacant land, then that is something that we can buy sight unseen, and the risks there are pretty low, because it's not much that can go wrong on a property if you're not worrying about things like improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll still go do a lot of due diligence. We're going to check for governmental liens. We're going to check for those kind of things, but there's really not a lot of risk as long as we've done our basic due diligence. We buy and sell properties sight unseen all day long.
Oh yeah, and by the way, the over-the-counters, somebody said here, do I need to buy over-the-counter in person, even from Canada? No, actually, all the over-the-counters that we buy, we do, it's a combination of online lists and then using postal service for most of them.
Yeah, most of them you're going to be, there's some online sales, like in Florida, Arizona, where you can buy them directly off the website after the sale. But most of these, like Shade said, you're going to be sending in, just a stamp, their bidder form, your check, the W-9 with the tax lien, and essentially you buy them that way.
Yeah, and by the way, you buy them from the county, definitely. You get them from the county. We update the lists almost constantly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're, getting around 400 to 500 auction lists each month. We have thousands of over-the-counter lists. And so, as far as those, we're constantly looking for any new auction or any auctions that's available so that we have, as many possible auctions as there are available to our members.
Yeah. In fact, oh yeah, we've got another example here after this. I just realized. In addition to that, we also have a great opportunity coming up here. We're actually doing in Orlando 3-day boot camp on December 13th, 14th, and 15th. We're going to be out there, and we've already filled up about half the seats that we have available here. They filled up kind of fast, but it's basically if you're to our members here, it's only $9.97, so we can. That also includes 2 seats for everybody as well. So, if you've got your partner or somebody you want to bring along, really, the 3-day events are a good opportunity for us to get to know you and to be able to show you in person more about how this works.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great opportunity. We just had one in October in Las Vegas, and it was a great opportunity to meet our members and really get a chance to help them start building their business. Because these 3 days are mostly participated by our members or our coaching members, it's really a more educated crowd, which means that we can really spend more of the time getting into the real, the real due diligence and the, and making sure that students understand how to get started and how to buy these properties. In fact, for people that want to sign up today, like Shade had mentioned, we're going to go ahead and allow 2 seats for the $9.97, but we're also, for people that are interested today, going to give them 6 months of membership for that $9.97 price. So, essentially at $40 a month, 6 months, that's, quite a value on top of spending 3 days with us.
Yeah, in fact, if you'd like to attend, we can actually, or if you'd like to learn more about coaching, to enroll, we've actually got it set up for you to call in.
Yeah. In fact, we'll give you the 8 number here in a minute, and we'll type it down there in the chat section, question section as well. We've got JJ, he's our program director of our advanced training. He's going to be available for about the next hour for any of you guys that have interest, have questions. You can go ahead and give him a call, and he can go ahead and get you registered for the 3-day. And then also, because you're registering today, that's where you're going to get the extra 6 months. You're going to get 6 months of the website, plus you can bring a guest for free.
Yeah. So we feel like it should be an awesome opportunity here to be able to see everybody and work with you guys in person. These are actually a couple of examples here of deals that some of the people did here in our last 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. So, students that attended the 3-day within a day or two of attending the 3-day, and during that time they were able to do the research and were able to purchase both of these properties. Well, purchase a tax lien on the property on the right, and then they actually purchased this tax deed on the property on the left. And these are 2 different students. And so, by attending the 3-day, our goal is that you'll understand and have the knowledge and have the tools to actually go out there and start building this business.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and give you the 1-800 number real quick. We'll show you the website. And for anyone that's interested in calling and speaking with JJ, he'll be available for about the next hour or so.
All right.
So of course, here's our website, taxsalesupport.com. If you can't make the 3-day, but you are interested in becoming a member, you can click on becoming a member, and then our number is listed down there below. It's 1-800-425-8068. And we're going to go ahead and post that within the chat section, question section as well. So if you're interested, go ahead and give JJ a call. If he's on the phone, just go ahead and leave a message, and he'll get back to you as soon as he gets off the other call.
Yeah. We've gone ahead and sent out that message there. Now, the way that the website works here, it is a combination of providing training and also providing lists. So there are both, portions there. If you're just getting started, we're probably going to have you come in here and download a bunch of the materials, that are included, like the course library. Your materials. We're going to have you start there. We're going to have you pick out an investor profile so that you can determine exactly how you're going to go about getting started. But then also so that can help you define a select number of states. But once you know the states that you might want to start in, then we can go over here to either the auction calendar or the online auction section, or the over-the-counter database, and we can download lists there for that specific state.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Shade mentioned, the first thing that we'll have the students do is start going through the course materials. That's really going to help give you the knowledge of tax liens and deeds, what's required, and that's also where in the quick start guide we're going to break down the investor profile system. You can also click on the investor profile system on the website as well and see which states are going to be associated with each profile. That way you can determine which states I want to work with. So if I decided I was an over-the-counter tax lien investor, I could see which states have over-the-counter tax liens, and then maybe if I wanted to go check out Florida, I could click on Florida or Colorado and see what the laws and how that state works.
Yeah, once you do that, it makes it a little bit easier. Once you know which states you're looking at, you can be a little bit more, you can take more of an opportunistic, approach to things, looking for, okay, which places are tax sales happening within these states. And then it's a matter of tracking the tax sales. Now, one of the tricks to having some success with this, it's always going to be difficult the first time you attend a sale, because it's the first time you're doing it, and the first time you do anything, it's unknown. But the next time around, it is 100% easier, because you know what to expect and you understand how things work. What you really need to do here is create a number of different places where you invest consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you've set up something like that, then you can go back and continue reinvesting in those areas. So we'll set up what we call power teams within certain areas that we're going to continue going back and investing. So let's say that there's a county in Florida that we participate in an online auction with each month, every time they have properties that we're interested in. Well, we've got people within that area that can help us with that deal. And so that's something that we kind of get into a little bit more with our training. And that's something about our training as well, which is, I think, is a big benefit, is that each week we do a live weekly webinar, kind of like we're doing right now that you guys are on different subjects. So we go over what we call an investor title search, where we show you how to research the title and the property to make sure there's not governmental liens, to make sure that there's not any of these things we need to watch for, or how to sell your property, or how to buy tax deeds. And we have, so each week is a different topic, which each one is going to be essentially a live brand new training.
Yeah, in addition to that, you also have access to all of the lists, and that's something that's taken years and years to put together, because really there's no coordination between counties and states. They just don't coordinate at all. And so figuring out exactly when all of the different sales are happening and getting the links and being able to gather their list has taken a long time, but we're to a point now where we can do that. And so you can identify auctions or tax sales that are going to be happening here on the calendar, or a lot of different ways. There's so many different ways you can get lists here on the site.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've been getting lists for 15 years now for our members. So what's nice is we started getting lists in areas where we normally didn't get them as much. States where the auction isn't held by the county, but on a city level. And so it's, there may be 12 counties, so that'd be pretty easy to get 12 lists for a state. But within that state, there's actually, 260 different cities, and those cities hold them whenever they need to. And so, we've essentially got it together where we're checking every one of these cities. We know when their auctions are happening, so that we're always providing you guys with as much of the auction list as humanly possible.
Oh yeah, by the way, the lists are all included with the membership. You don't have to pay an additional price for the lists. They're all included in the in the membership. So
yeah, that was one thing we definitely wanted to do when we set up the membership program, is that, you know, essentially you're going to get everything for that one cost.
Yeah, so yeah, that part is no problem. And yeah, we are thrilled to have you guys. You know, Steve and I really enjoy what we do, and you know, giving people a good deal and trying to be honest about what we do is important to us as well. And I think that always has been important to us.
Yeah, well, our number one reason we do this is because we love helping people do it. I mean, if it really came down to it, we'd
be easier
probably,
to go out
yeah,
and
just
do
to do 100% investing, because we're still doing investing. So we, you know, do training and investing, but it's because we love teaching people. I mean,
well, it's nice to see them make changes. It's nice to see them change their future.
Oh, absolutely.
Change their outcome.
Those success stories that we showed you guys today, those are people changing their lives. Those are people that, you know, turning around and doing and making $50,000 on a deal. They had never done that before, you know, and that's a great opportunity. And now to go out there and continue doing that over and over and over again, you know, you can change your own life, you can change the life for your family, and really have a strategy that most people in the country don't know about and don't know how to do. It's to us, it's a treasure hunt.
Yeah, it's kind of fun that way. You know, we like searching for, you know, for those diamonds in the rough, you know, for the hidden deals out there, and there are property deals all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys have questions about the 3-day, what's that number again? Let's go ahead and
it's 800-425-8068.
Perfect. Yeah.
So 800-425-8068. It's also down there in the questionnaire chat section down there. But we just want to thank you guys for joining us today, and we will be sure to get out a replay of this to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can't make the 3-day and you're interested in the membership, give us a try. You know, you really have nothing to lose with our money back guarantee at low cost. You know, we really do believe it's the best value, and we really want to help as many people as we can be successful.
All right. Oh yeah. By the way, somebody wanted to show here on Florida, and take a second here and show you a few things here on Florida. So when it comes to Florida, here's a couple things to take note of. So Florida's tax liens, the tax lien auctions take place once a year, and they seem to take place around May or June.
Yeah, between May and June.
And so when it comes to the tax lien sales, you can purchase them during the auctions or after the auction. They do have some over-the-counter inventory, but the problem that with the over-the-counter inventory in Florida is, for some reason, all of the liens there have all the properties that are over the counter seem to have a ton more owed in delinquent taxes than just the 2 years that would be required in order to foreclose. You know, in other words, sometimes we'll see 6-7 years worth of taxes that make a lot of the properties almost upside down.
Well, and there is still good tax liens over the counter in Florida, but if they're sold online, then they're going to be picked up pretty shortly without, you know, after the auction. I mean, we've seen, for example, in Duval County this year, you know, there was good tax liens after the auction, but those good tax liens were picked up within, you know, within 30 days after the auction takes place. So if you are going to invest in over-the-counter tax liens in Florida, what my recommendation, or I guess our recommendation would be, is you can check out some of the ones that offer them online, but some of the very best liens are going to be the ones that nobody's looking at, and those are the ones that aren't offered online. So if the county doesn't offer their over-the-counters online on their auction website, then that could be a good way in finding over-the-counter tax liens that are going to be better, because you don't have to just go to the website, click on it, and buy it. You have to do the traditional way, where you send in a check and, you know, mail in the offer.
Yeah. You know, so what we have right here, you know, this is one of the companies that handles some of the online sales for different counties in Florida, is Real Auction. And that includes some of the lien sales. And after the lien sale occurs, they will still have some inventory that's left over. And so where we can see this county held is open here, we can kind of show you here if we were to look and see if anybody has any inventory. So this is kind of what the outline of the site looks like. We're going to look at Purchase County held certificates. Whoops. We're going to preview the items for sale here. And then these are all liens that we're looking at right here. So, you know, if we can change this based on the amount, there are liens as small as 9 cents. That's a tiny lien. And let's see what the biggest are here. And they go up to as high as about 2,300. But the problem is that I think all of these liens are going to be junk. I think that, you know, these liens, most of these are probably going to have too much owed in delinquent taxes and fees because they're older. The best time to buy over-the-counter liens in Florida is right after the sale. If you're going to buy them over the counter, you know, it's going to be shortly after the sale. So there's about a period of about, you know, 2 to 4 weeks, you know, during the year when if you're going to buy in Florida, it's the best time to buy.
Yeah.
So anyhow, and when it comes to deeds, we normally just do those through the auction. Those are totally different animal. And yeah, in Florida too, we can kind of wrap it up on this. In Florida, the one thing that's also different about Florida with their tax liens is after 2 years in most places, the lien holder would foreclose on the property. But in Florida, after 2 years, the lien holder lets the county know that, you know, they submit their form.
The deed application.
That's right, the deed application. You fill out a deed application, the county will schedule the property for an auction. From there, they'll sell it at the auction and use the proceeds to pay off the lien holders. So the only way you actually get the property as a lien holder in Florida is if it doesn't get a bid.
Yeah.
So anyhow, thank you guys. We'll let everybody go. Thanks for joining us though, and hopefully we'll catch you next time.
Yep. Thanks again.